Artist taxi driver Natalie Bennett, the leader of the Green Party. And we were just talking about the immigration bill. We was talking about text messages, living in a moment in history where it's okay to have racist vans on the streets. Now this whole, I mean, it's, to me, it looks like the Tories are getting ready to fight the next election on welfare, on immigration, and they've been attacking. They've actually, to me, I think they're using prejudice as a policy. Yep. And I think Linton Crosby, who's well renowned for it, has come in and explained to them that this actually is a vote winner. If you go out, you know, if you talk about like our doctors ask, why are these people coming over here using our NHS? Why are they, you know, it will divert attention. It's about scapegoating. It's about the transference of evil away from their vision of privatisation.
I think what's happening is, you know, lots of people are struggling, and they're trying to make the scapegoats, not the, you know, make people like immigrants, make people like benefit recipients the scapegoats. When of course, you know, it's actually government decisions that are creating these situations. It's always like, you know, understandably, because people are told it so often. When I knock on doors, people will often say, "Oh, you know, immigration's my top issue." And when you ask them and try and unpick that, and, you know, what do you mean by that? And often what they're saying is, well, my children can't get a council house near where I live. And then I talk about right to buy and the fact that we've lost so much council housing stock and haven't replaced it. And, you know, that's government decision is what caused that. Your local doctor's surgery is crowded. Well, that's because we haven't been funding the NHS properly, not because immigrants have come in. You know, all of those things, try and unpick why those things are happening, and they go back to government decisions. They're not because of immigrants. And it's really important, I think, that we do that. And there's lots of, you know, I think this is a debate that, you know, we have to get out there and be one on. I did a speech in July that sort of really said we have to stop this race to the bottom on immigration issues. And it was interesting. It was actually the same week that Sarah Tether, the Lib Dem MP, came out and said she wasn't going to stand again because she hated the stance that Lib Dems were taking on immigration. And so, you know, I think there's a real backlash against all this scapegoating of immigrants. And I think, you know, most people, when you actually talk to them and unpick the issues, they get that immigrants are not the problem. And certainly, you know, we are, by scapegoating immigrants, we're making this a much, you know, less fair, less reasonable, less just society.
Why do you think prejudice is such a gaping wound in people?
I think it's very easy to pick on to sort of say, you know, there's the other over there, and, you know, they're the source of your problems, not you. And, you know, I was actually once at a public meeting with on the bedroom tax. And, you know, there was a guy there who was understandably, you know, was really tormented about, you know, he was absolutely stuck. He couldn't pay, he couldn't move, and he couldn't pay, and he, you know, he wasn't buying food because he couldn't. And he said, you know, the pensioner who lives down around the corner from me, he doesn't have to pay it, so he should have to pay it too. And I got up and said, no, let's not say that. Let's say, you know, make the bankers pay their taxes, and then, you know, neither of you should have to pay the bedroom tax.
Exactly. We also live in a society that, at its very baseness, at its core, it embraces misogyny. Mm-hmm. The root of all abuse, of all disease within humanity. How is it so prevalent?
Well, that's a very deep and long question. I mean, you're asking someone who was, feminism is my first politics. And I started to be a feminist when at age 5 I was told, it's not ladylike to have a bicycle, so you're not allowed to have a bicycle. But if you had a brother, he'd be allowed to have a bicycle. And, you know, those kind of attitudes have been running for millennia. And, you know, there's a lot to take it on. But what I'd like to do is really confront the really measurable, you know, discrimination, things like unequal pay, things like the fact that, you know, the changes that are being made to benefits at the moment are hugely disproportionately impacting on women, particularly single mothers most of all. You know, so tackle those concrete, measurable things and say, you know, we're not going to tolerate companies not paying their male and female workers equally. We're not going to tolerate a benefit system that doesn't ensure that everybody has enough for what they need, and recognises the fact that, you know, if for the average woman, a fifth of her income over her life comes from benefits. The average man, it's a tenth. The issue of benefits being enough for everyone to live a decent life is very much a feminist issue. But
I notice from, like, whenever I interview somebody who, like, if I interview a woman in the comments, I don't understand. I don't know where it comes from.
Well, I think, again, we're looking through centuries, and people will come to attack someone they don't agree with. They'll attack on the basis of whatever they think you might be vulnerable to. And luckily, I've been a journalist and in daily newspapers for sort of best part of 20 years, so I've got a hide like a rhinoceros.
But like a lot of the stuff that was happening earlier on in the year on the Twitter thing, where some of that was appalling, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But that I think just touched. Most of it is casual. Most of misogyny is casual. We have an all-white government, all-male government, all-rich government.
Well, almost all, yeah.
So it's from the top down, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's why the Green Party, we want to start from the bottom on things like equal pay, and making the minimum wage a living wage is very much a gender issue, because about 2/3 of the people on minimum wage are women.
Yeah.
And start at those kind of issues, but also do things like we want to make a quota of, as Norway did, for women on boards, the FTSE 100 boards, that should be 40% minimum women, and you need to work at all levels in society and just basically say there's standards here you have to meet. And so say to companies, to tackle an equal pay is you have to publish your pay data and your ratios, and so it's immediately visible for big companies where the gender disparity is.
Well, I think also that there's this, I interviewed Laurie Penny, and she said something like patriarchy literally means rule of fathers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that actually brings up the other interesting point of how much I've been doing a lot of work on this recently. How much we're exploiting our young, putting our young into 0 hours contracts, putting our young into low paid jobs, saddling them with enormous amount of student debt. And the Green Party, we believe in zero tuition fees.
They've got people on workfare. They've got people with cancer. Like Atos is finding them fit to work. It doesn't matter whether they've had chemotherapy and all their hair's fallen out.
Well, yeah, the whole Atos, and we were talking about the stigmatisation, and we've seen a horrific situation in terms of people with disabilities. And I belong to an email list of people campaigning against Atos and the whole work capability test. And a story I heard on that just made my blood run cold. It was from a disabled person who was standing at a bus stop leaning on a stick, and a young lad walked past, looked at her, and kicked the stick out from underneath her. And she fell over, and then he said in tones of total surprise, "Oh, so you're not faking it then?"
That's shocking.
And that's the kind of all the kind of stigmatisation of particularly disabled people and benefit recipients generally
awful.
that we're seeing. That's where it's ending up. And yet actually the rate of fraud on all of those benefits is absolutely tiny.
Yeah.
Particularly when you
But they
compare
like pushing that, don't they? They don't talk about the bankers. You see, the bankers, the banks own everything. So, wouldn't it be great if we had couldn't we have a nationalised bank, a non-for-profit bank?
That's what. Well, of course, we actually do in terms of that we largely own, parts of banks, and what we should have done is fully nationalise them and taken them under public control and use them to make sure that banks are doing the right thing to serve the real economy, small businesses, cooperatives, making sure they get the funding they need to function.
Yeah, but the whole bank thing is they won't build more houses, because if they build more, if they took what you said, 2 million council homes, if they replace those, the value of mortgage property would just go boom. The banks would be on the floor the next day.
Well, we have to build those homes, although what we also have to do is look at regional development policy and the fact that there's actually 1 million empty homes in Britain, but they're largely in places where people don't want to live because there's no economic opportunities. Yeah. And one of the other things you might not know is that there's actually now more bedrooms per person in Britain than there's ever been before.
Wow.
Which I think is an interesting stat, and it sort of shows how we've got that problem of inequality. Is some people are living in bigger, the small percentage of rich are living in bigger and bigger houses.
Yeah, the Queen's got 70 bedrooms. What do you think of Russell Brand's thing for the revolution?
Well, I think obviously I'm disappointed that he said don't vote, but I'd much rather we would have said vote green. But I think we clearly do need to absolutely transform our economy, transform our society. We're currently living as though we've got 3 planets. That's our lifestyle in Britain, but we've only got 1 planet, so we've got to come back within that 1 planet limit. But what we also have to do is make sure that everybody has enough for a decent life within that 1 planet living for the whole of society. So, we're using up the resources of 3 planets, but we've got 500,000 people today at this moment in Britain dependent on food banks. We've got huge numbers of people who are absolutely struggling, don't have enough money every month to get by. So we've got to really utterly rebalance our society, transform the way it works. We've got to transform our whole economy, get away, as you were saying, from banking, finance, banking, arms industry, pharmaceuticals, get back to making things, growing food, making food, doing a whole different kind of economy. And we have to change, because we can't stay as we are. It's not sustainable.
Well, we've got a queen. The monarchy's got to go. We've got a queen who said, "I will look after you all. I need 5 palaces, £1 million golden carriage, 8 white horses, helicopters, yachts, 70 nations, my family, my kids, my grandkids, their children. We all need somewhere. They all need stately homes. We need lots of money, butlers, servants, horses, security guards. Oh yeah, I want to be head of the church and have a really big army."
Well, I mean, one of the things that I said was, when the new royal baby was born, that I said I very much hoped that by the time he turned 18, that he'd have exactly the same chance of being head of state as every other 18-year-old.
Or he was on an island somewhere with the rest of the royal family put there.
Well, no, he should have exactly the same chance as the other 2,000 babies born that day.
So, I mean, I've got to round this up. I still got about 1 million questions.
Sorry.
I've got this thing like the privatisation of the NHS, the privatisation of our education system. This isn't a democracy. We've got John Nash. He's got like a Tory party donor. Made a peer, contracts from IDS, and he was made a schools minister by Michael Gove, and his whole thing is about he's a vulture capitalist.
Yeah. No, I mean, things absolutely have to change, and I think they will change, because, as I was saying, I think our economy at the moment is totally unsustainable. The reality is also our current politics.
The House of Lords is a cesspit. There's like lobbyists in there. That's all.
Well, you were talking about the monarchy, but in terms of constitutional reform, I'd like to start with the House of Lords first. And actually, it's on the 5th of November that Jenny Jones will be our new Green peer going in the House of Lords.
5th of November. She better be careful. There's a few people going to be running up and down the street on that day as well.
Well, she might be running up and down the street with them, but she's joining the House of Lords with the explicit aim of getting rid of it.
Fantastic. Let's vote for Jenny Jones to get rid of the House of Lords. I'm the Irish taxi driver. This, my friend, has been the incredible Natalie Bennett.
Thank you.